Did you know that at least 700,000, if not 1 million, Russian men have left their home country ever since this partial mobilization? It's a huge number of people leaving Russia. So, what is actually happening? The situation is getting very dire for Mr. Putin. He seems to be losing on all fronts. His army is highly demotivated. Ukrainians are pressing hard. So they are retreating from where they used to be and where they used to have a ownership to Ukrainian territory. Now, secondly, there seems to be a lot of signs too that the people inside the Russia, the so-called ordinary people, are coming to the terms to realize that actually what is happening is much more than anybody was thinking before. So there is a massive amount of new type of mobilization where people are questioning experts and the citizen people alike. What is actually happening there? And this is actually changing the situation very dramatically. The leadership of the country, meaning the political leaderships and the oligarchs, are growing restless. As I envisage when this war started, I projected that the Putin system is going to start to collapse. And it collapses because the internal weaknesses that it has. It has been built on the kleptocracy, to the bureaucracy, and to this kind of a command and control culture, which works sometimes in a simple environment, but becomes a seriously challenge when you have a much more complex environment and the system to deal with. So what we see now is that the walls are, so to say, falling down in the kingdom of Putin. Slowly but surely it will appear to Mr. Putin that he has to find his way out of this war, which is not what typically Putin does. He does not retreat, he does not regret, he does not step back. But in this case, it seems this is the only way out. And for Russia, we see kind of three issues that are at stake. The first issue is that Putin and Russia has to accept that they will lose all the territories that they've had acquired since the Crimean occupation 2014. And that's going to be very hard because the whole war was sold with a promise that there is actually more territories coming. But now comes the contrary. And then we come to the second point, which is that Putin do not have a mandate anymore to be on the top of Russia. While he loses his mandate, somebody else needs to come, some other government needs to be built to take the leadership and control over the Russia and start to build a very new type of the relationship, because the ongoing war has proved that this very aggressive way of dealing with the neighbors do not result anything positive for Russians or actually for anybody else for that sake. And even with the thing that Europe, that has been kind of put into the tight situation with a rising gas prices, the situation is still that in the end, this is only a temporary thing. Europe will find its alternative sources of energy. This is not the end result. Europe is going to be hard for the coming winter, perhaps, and the high gas prices and simply the fact that the gas is not flowing anymore to such an extent from Russia will, of course, put a heavy pressure. But when Europe gets over that, find alternative sources, the price level gets down, then we're gonna have a new situation where Europe is not anymore dependent on the Russian gas. Now, the third aspect of what is going to happen is that since it's become very obvious that Russia cannot continue in this type of a policy scheme, they need to find an alternative to that. And I truly believe that the alternative to the current regime is to actually go back and start to build relationships with other countries, including Europe, including the West. And that type of the leadership will at some point come to the Russia who understands that this is actually the only way to build. Even if at the same time these relationships with China, other parts of the Asia, maybe they also going to continue to be developed. But Russia can never survive actually without the collaboration with the West. And that is particularly true because of the technology. The technology in our society, and in the future even more so, is the crucial asset that we have for any type of the society to flourish and develop. And you need to have that technology base in order to do that. And for that sake, Russia can never say no in the long term for building this collaborationship with the West, with the US, with the Europe, who has that technology. Even if a lot of that technology comes, of course, also from the Asia. The second point is that geographically, Russia is a part of the Europe, not Asia. It's much more leaning to the Europe, and it has much more historical ties to Europe. It has been Europeanized ever since Peter the Great, and that was 300 years ago when this whole thing started. And after that, there was a French language that was used in the court of Russia. All kinds of European ways of life were built and integrated into the part of the Russian culture. And I don't think that Putin or anybody else can cut off that very long historic time. So sooner or later, we're gonna see that Russia is going to come back to the more sort of a decent relationship with the West, with the US, and so forth. And when that happens, then it will be a very new age for Russia. But of course, before that, a lot of things has to happen which further takes away a power of the Russian society and economy. But through that type of hard times, I'm sure there will be a new Russia that will be generated out of this mess that we currently still witness. Summarizing, what has happened in Russia and with Putin is that Putin has pushed out the Western money out of the Russia, a lot of its own people out of the Russia. Any sympathy and empathy that anybody outside Russia was feeling for Russia, most of that has also been crushed. And in fact, also, a lot of young, intelligent, forward-looking generation has been forced to expel from the Russia and seek better life outside Russia. Even if I'm sure they actually would love to come back to Russia and live there. But for the time being, it's impossible. Putin has been pushing all those things out of the Russia. And he's still selling this, that as a result, there is a stronger Russia, which is total nonsense, of course. But this is what has happened. So this cannot continue, and that's why there's gonna be a very different future for Russia. Check other related videos from my channel and give your comments. What do you think is the future of Russia? Let me hear from you.